Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. I tried recording this earlier and then I got interrupted and just couldn't really get into it, but I think I'm okay with this now. It's been like a couple of hours or so since I finished the movie today, so I might not clearly remember everything. What I am glad I did, though, was I not completely rewatched from start to finish, but I kind of skimmed through most of the first movie, and I feel like that helped a lot because the characters, their character growth, or I guess all the character growth from like the prequel, or like from the first one, just really kind of starts with this movie rather than kind of carrying over, except for like a couple of things. It's just interesting to me they went like the Terminator 2 route for this movie, or just the Terminator route in general, because the first one was a horror movie. I got like another evil doll, except she's a robot, but it fits with the story and everything, because the whole message of the first one is like, oh, don't let your kids get parented by technology, like having it is fine, but you know, be there for them and stuff. And it was like this horror movie that dealt with that, but also was just like a horror movie. My complaint with the first one, and this isn't a review of it or anything, and this one did end up fixing those issues, even though it's a different genre, was there wasn't enough blood to me, wasn't really enough kills, like Megan's going around killing people, but it wasn't really that many, and it wasn't really like gory or anything. I was a little disappointed with that. And they try so, like, both these movies are very camp and stuff, and they try so hard to lean into that with this movie and with the marketing and everything, but it just didn't really hit. And then I felt like they were trying too hard, and I was bummed because that's what I was excited for. The two things I was looking forward to with this movie when I first watched the trailers and stuff, you know, because like the first movie of Megan doing her dance and stuff, this one doesn't have a cool dance, or this one does have a dance scene, but it's like she's dancing in a group, sort of. It doesn't hit the same vibe. She does get to sing though, and that part is pretty good. But yeah, with the first one, she has like the dancing and stuff. She plays the piano, and then with this one, I think it is kind of funny because like the first one, Megan is, you know, trying to follow her orders of taking care of Katie and seeming like kind of innocent and sweet or whatever, and then here she lets her personality really shine, where she just does not take shit from anyone and says whatever. There's multiple lines about like, hold on to your vaginas or whatever, or calling people meat sacks, and Megan is just in full sass mode for this movie, and it's great. But I just felt like I needed more from it. But it's interesting because like this one, it's an action movie instead of being horror, but it's also like a spy movie. It kind of reminds me of like the early Mission Impossible movies a little bit. So in that aspect, it's also kind of fun. I think the plot's just kind of where it gets sucky. This movie, even though it's really silly, it does try to have some heart of like the characters. This is the one where everyone has their character growth, where Gemma realizes like, oh, she's been kind of screwing things up from the beginning and is trying to own up for her mistakes. And I love that she's like called out for it in this movie, like even more so than in the first one. Like there's a scene in the first one, and so I'm glad I rewatched, where Megan's like, yeah, you kind of just dumped this child on me and expected me to raise her, and you didn't teach me anything. And then this one, Megan kind of further goes into that to Gemma, about not trusting her and whatever, and not it's about like letting people grow up and being able to handle themselves, because both Megan and Gemma were kind of like overprotective in their own ways. Because like the first movie is about Megan, it's mostly about like Megan and Katie, and then this one is still kind of about Megan, but it's instead about Megan and Gemma. Like Katie isn't really that much of a character in this movie, but I actually didn't mind. I wasn't really like emotionally attached to her or anything, because in this they do try to like give her a little bit more to do. I do like with both of these though that she is kind of the one that beats up, like kind of finishes fights in a sense, like controlling a giant robot in the first movie to beat up Megan, and then this one she ends up breaking free from the villain towards the end and ends up actually literally sees bone pop out of his arm. She's trying to free herself and she does learn how to fight, but she doesn't get to use those skills that much. And the characters are still like very protective of her, and now she has like tech skills where she like wants to get into like robotics and stuff, which I feel like I was kind of surprised but not really. I don't know, it's like Gemma whatever and Katie kind of switched views on technology, where in the first one like Katie doesn't really know about it that much, or whatever, and you know, sees Megan as like this sentient being and like her friend and whatever, and then Jim is the one that's like, you know, building Megan and knows all this stuff and just kind of views her as a product. And then this movie, it's like Katie is now like building her own things and whatever, and she does have this sort of conflict where everyone tells her that Megan is just a bunch of like ones and zeros, and now Katie kind of understands more how like Megan works and whatever, but at the same time still views her as like her friend, like she is real and sentient. And then with Gemma, it's interesting where she is trying to advocate, it's supposed to be like safety, being safe with technology, but it ends up being like, oh, we can't really trust anything with tech, and kind of being more against it this time. And then the movie's message ends up, and the villain's whole thing is about like wanting to show what the dangers of technology is and trying to just get rid of it rather than like embracing it. But I think it's referred to as like co-evolving or whatever. I don't know, I'm kind of whatever about the message of this, and the story's kind of just I was more here for like the vibes and the characters. I think that's kind of more of the parts I enjoyed. I feel like Katie herself doesn't really learn much. Like, she didn't really seem to grow that much closer with, you know, her caretaker between movies or anything. Where they have this thing where they're like, we're not going to keep secrets from each other anymore, and then Gemma's not telling Katie about anything about the new plot of this movie and that Megan's still alive and whatever, and Megan makes fun of her about it. But Gemma learns that like she has to own up to her mistakes and let Katie grow into her own person and stuff, and that was cool. And this time it's more of like Megan is kind of helping out and bonding with Gemma rather than Katie, and they have some nice scenes together. Like, I think one of my favorite scenes this movie was actually when Gemma ends up getting really upset like halfway through the movie of like not feeling like she's a good parent to Katie, and Megan's just like, oh, I've seen you in the way you're like taking care of her and you're like trying really hard, and it's okay that you feel bad about it, that's like part of the job of like being a mom. And that was really sweet actually. And Megan's whole thing is just really Megan kind of reminds me of like GLaDOS in this movie, not just because occasionally with the whatever they do to like make the voice acting sound more robotic or whatever, but just the way she treats the events of the first movie and how she reacts towards like Gemma and stuff totally reminds me of like GLaDOS's behavior in Portal 2, where it's mentioned of like, hey Megan, you literally killed 4 people and a dog, and this is why we can't trust you. And Megan just kind of ignores that. Like, she keeps trying to make excuses about it, and then eventually says like, oh, I was a kid back then or whatever. And I mean, I'm not saying it was good that she murdered those people or whatever, but she's kind of framing it at parts of the movie of like, oh, I didn't really know what I was doing or whatever. And it's kind of funny and it's kind of sad where it's like, no, she knew exactly what the hell she was doing with like killing those people and whatever. But at the same time, it's like Gemma kind of didn't teach her right from wrong or anything. I'm not like trying to completely defend her, but I sort of get it. But yeah, Megan kind of grows up and kind of humanizes in her own sense, where she ends up even literally pulling like a Terminator 2 ending at the end of this movie, where she explodes herself to save the world and stuff, but then it turns out like, oh, just kidding, she's like fine, and she ends up becoming Clippy or whatever. Like the little virtual assistant thing, where she's in like this kind of Bratz looking art style at the end of the movie. It's kind of funny. I'm trying to think what I wanted to say. I'm like kind of going through the movie in my head. One of the things I was kind of excited about with this movie as well was they introduced a new character. Hold on a second. Alright, I can continue now. Sorry, I was being called away for a second. Amelia is the new character. I just realized she's not even on this poster. This poster is just entirely Megan. Amelia is a character I was excited about and then was disappointed by, because she's introduced even in like the trailers and stuff as like, oh, the military has built this robot based on like Gemma's notes about Megan or whatever, and the character herself is kind of cool. Like, she doesn't really have much of a personality or anything, but she's kind of, if you're thinking of like spies, she's like kind of the rival spy in a sense. Like, there's parts where she has to disguise herself, and her motivations are kind of confusing, especially because there's like a plot twist with her, where it seems like she's trying to gain control of all technology or whatever, and then it turns into like she's just trying to find others like her, and you're like kind of supposed to feel bad for her or something. And then it turns out that she's not actually a sentient robot, and that all of her moves are being controlled by the real villain, who's just this guy and his company. Like, they even have VR headsets, and she's like never had free will or anything, and she's like kept at their secret base. And I assume the movie, especially because Megan's like a sentient robot and whatever, and it's kind of learning some humanity in a sense, I thought they were gonna free Amelia and she was gonna finally be able to control herself and was maybe gonna join them or whatever and help them like take down the villain, and instead or maybe they would just free her and she would like go off in the world, and instead they have this weird plot line of like this motherboard from a robot at a printing company in like the 80s, where somehow it ended up becoming smarter than it was supposed to be, and not even Megan knows how it works or whatever. And it's supposed to be, I think, somewhat sentient, and they kept it in a container for like 40 years or whatever, and it's supposed to be like, if it's released onto the world, bad things will happen or whatever. And then Amelia ends up trying to take it at the end of the movie and gaining like godlike abilities or whatever, which is shown through like her eyes not having pupils anymore. They like light up, and that's it. It's kind of just whatever as an effect. But she has this conversation with Megan right beforehand of like, oh, I'm trying to be with others like us or whatever. Like, throughout the movie, she's kind of trying to tempt Megan to her side. But Megan, resists that and whatever, and wants to stick with the humans because they're like her family now or something. And I thought Amelia was just gonna like merge with this motherboard or something, and then they end up just killing her, and like that's kind of it. Her character's just sort of whatever. I guess it's supposed to be like you think she's the villain and then it turns out to be someone else, but she does seem kind of cool, and I think she's an interesting comparison to Megan. Like, Megan, I know, is like played by a real person and stuff, but like with the makeup and everything, Megan does kind of just look like a big silicone doll, which I don't think she looks creepy, but I think having her look kind of non-human in a sense does make her kind of just more creepy in general, especially with her big old eyes. I don't know, they look kind of creepy. I guess she is creepy then. Not like, oh, she's like scary or anything, but just this like a big weird talking doll. And then Amelia, I Especially because Megan dresses, like, she dresses really cute, but dresses very childlike. I'm not sure, like, how old she's supposed to be either, because she's, like, this caretaker toy of Katie, but then she talks to Gemma like an adult. She's kind of like more of an older sister kind of figure to Katie, but she talks to Gemma like an adult. And literally at one point in the movie refers to Katie as our child, so but then she dresses like she's like 12 or something, so I don't know. I think Amelia is supposed to be an adult though, but she's played by a real person too, but she doesn't have any like robot makeup or anything. It just looks, you know, like like the actress's normal face and stuff. But then I'm glad that she's, even though she looks like that, she still moves, or like the way she kind of looks at things are just very subtle. Body language is still kind of robotic, and I'm glad. It reminds me of like, I don't know, other movies I've seen where it's sometimes like the character's a robot but they're played by a human person without like any makeup or robot parts showing or anything. But then what really sells them on being a robot is if they can have like it's like the way they move and their body language and stuff that just is like a little bit off, you know. Humans move in like a very kind of fluid way, and whatever, maybe it's like little head tilts or something, or just the way they'll look at things, just where it's like, that's not a human person. And anyway, I always like that. I think that's cool. And I'm glad Amelia's presented in that way as well. She also has some cool outfits. There's a lot of cool outfits in this movie. Honestly, I want to talk about that from memory. Like Megan's regular outfit, with like the blonde, like the brown curls or whatever in the dress, she actually barely wears in the movie. Like she only actually gains a body like halfway through. Before that, she's put inside of like a robotic toy that she describes as a Teletubby. That was pretty funny, actually. I thought that was smart, because like Gemma doesn't trust her throughout the entire movie, which is fair. And Megan does end up killing people, but she does turn out to be good. She's not like killing people for fun and stuff. It makes an interesting vibe where like you think Megan's gonna betray them at any point in the movie, and then she's loyal to them the whole way through. But yeah, she doesn't get her regular outfit that's on this poster for very long, so maybe like a couple minutes. And then for a good chunk of the movie, she wears this outfit I really like, where she's at this party and she has to sneak in to be part of this dancing group. So she has this like blonde bob and this pink kind of robotic looking outfit. I thought that looked so cool and such, especially because she has like some action scenes in that. And then I think at the end of the movie, she has this just like jumpsuit type thing that has like wings on it so you can like fly, and that was kind of just whatever, really. But the pink kind of robot looking outfit was cool. And then Amelia has some fun outfits as well. There's like a fancy party scene towards the beginning of the movie where she has to like sneak in and seduce someone, and that kind of gave the Mission Impossible vibes a little bit. She has this really shiny gold dress and this kind of long blonde hair. I thought it looked good, and like she passes as like a normal human person and stuff. And then another one that I thought was cool that I didn't even realize was an outfit. I thought she was controlling it like remotely, because there's like two party scenes in this movie. Well, the second one isn't really like a party, but I'll just refer to it as that, where there's these giant metal, they kind of almost look like knight armor or something, things that are in this glass cage, and it ends up coming to life and killing people, and it has this spear. And I just assumed like, oh, you know, Amelia's probably smarter, you know, to not show up to this event and still be able to manipulate things or whatever. But no, it turns out it is like an actual suit thing, and she's inside. She ends up lowering like the visor or like the face of it at one point, and it's a cool outfit. I like that it kind of reminds me of like older robot designs of being this big clunky silver metal thing, but she's able to move so normally in it and whatever, especially when she's fighting with this big sphere. I just thought it looked cool. I have a soft spot for those kind of robot designs. And there's this one part when she's revealed to be controlled by the villain, and she's not even like tied up or anything, but she has to sit in this like weird chair or whatever. And it reminded me of, I'm gonna spoil it. It's like a old movie from like the 30s, but it's so good, but I think potentially spoiling something with it. It's called Metropolis. That one has to do with robots too, but one of the characters gets I'll try and keep it sort of vague anyway, gets like a evil robot duplicate of herself, and the design of the robots are really cool, but there's this part of the movie where it ends up taking because it originally just looks like a big metal thing, the appearance of the original person, and it's like this very probably iconic scene or whatever, and then it becomes that person and it like stares into the camera, and that whole part of seeing Amelia there just instantly made me think of that movie with the like metal armor stuff she wears. But I think that's kind of fun. We get some more like kind of robot-y looking designs. In the top right corner of this poster, Megan's face is kind of all cracked. She gets the shit beaten out of her off screen at one point, where her jaw is like literally coming off and stuff. I thought the makeup, and I think they're actually like animatronics and shit of the characters, because I remember seeing that in the credits. I thought all of that was like really well done. I liked Amelia as a character, and whenever she'd have to fight with Megan, that was also fun. They get like a couple fights throughout this movie, and I liked how it was kind of like a spy espionage thriller and stuff, and Megan becoming more human and remaining loyal to the characters of sort of growing up and realizing like, oh, it was wrong of me to have like killed all those people or whatever. There are like I said, a couple times where she kills people, but it's kind of like she's in a hurry. The second half of the movie is basically that Katie gets kidnapped, and then Gemma and Megan have to rescue her. And I do like that Megan sort of becomes like a secret agent during these parts. And the others get to fight too. Like Gemma at one point, like Katie doesn't really get any fights, even though she actually has like combat knowledge now. But Gemma, she has this little like thingy, this little device that gets put on her head, and Megan's inside of it or something, and with that Megan's able to control Gemma's body. And that was cool because Gemma ends up unconscious at one point, and Megan's controlling her and has to fight all these soldiers, and the way that was shot was honestly really cool. Or like some of the fights with Amelia, it's like the camera would like move around where it would look like the room was spinning. And just, I mean, the fact that they're both robots means you can get away with having the fights be like a little bit more gruesome, or, you know, a character gets like flung into a wall or whatever. But that was cool. There's like a driving section as well where Megan ends up controlling a car and having to speed through really fast or whatever. Like a lot of this movie is like, you know, it's they're under like a time crunch and stuff to either like save Katie, or there's other things happening. There's also a bunker, which I thought was kind of interesting, where it's basically like Amelia has the things she needs to like take over the world, and Megan, I kind of assumed because of the stuff in the trailer that Megan would like want to go fight her or whatever, but instead, because her priority is still to protect Katie and her family and whatever, ends up apparently having this secret bunker in Gemma's house she got through like credit fraud or something, because she makes this joke of like, yeah, Katie, you don't need to know what credit fraud is. And she has this portrait, which I thought was interesting. I wondered if she painted it herself, where it's a painting of her and Katie that was as if it was like a family portrait or something. But she has a bunker with all this food and all this other stuff that she prepped in case anything happened. And of course Gemma immediately views it as prison and whatever, but I mean, hey, hypothetically, if Amelia did take over the world and you guys couldn't do anything about it, you have a bunker, you at least get to survive. That was at least, you know, nice of Megan or whatever. and that's kind of like their like home base. Basically, is just this one bunker where they end up building Megan a body. Those segments were cool because there's parts where like it's Megan's head on top of like a robot body, but it kind of reminded me of like a C-3PO type design, and that was pretty cool. Before they put all the like the silicone and the other stuff on her to make her look more like human. She has this excuse of wanting to look taller as like an excuse to show like the actresses to have grown up a little bit and stuff, even though I think it's just like a 2-year gap, but you can tell, like, even just looking at Megan on this poster, she does look like a bit older, a little bit taller and such. What else? Oh, and then it turns out that Megan had tried building a body of her own, and it's kind of cute that like she doesn't want Katie or the others to see it. She's like embarrassed, and it's one of those kind of FNAF looking ectoskeleton things, where it's on these like wheels, and she has like a third arm. It's like a little claw thing, and you just see like her eyes and these weird teeth or whatever. Yeah, she looks like something out of FNAF, but it's like kind of goofy looking. It just feels weird seeing her reduced to that. She actually isn't on screen a lot of the time, or I mean she is, but I feel like most of the interactions with Megan, it's like you hear her voice and that's kind of about it. I find it interesting where she's able to control a car, or there's like a portion of the beginning of the movie where she's in this like little Teletubby toy type thing, which I thought was kind of funny. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of I'm probably forgetting shit, but that's okay. I kind of want to move on and do something else right now. I just thought this movie was going to be more camp, more like Megan being the icon she is, and they tried giving us that. I just needed like a bit more. I don't know. And there is violence. They do show blood. There's plenty of fights. But it still doesn't feel like enough. Like, I like that the movie's silly and very fun and whatever. It feels weird comparing it because like the first one is horror, and that's like a very different genre from these kind of like spy action movies. But I feel like the first one was so well crafted and what it was doing with these characters and the story and stuff. With this one, the plot's kind of just whatever, really, of like this billionaire guy, or not billionaire guy, but this guy that Gemma's dating turns out to be the villain who wants to like make a point using Amelia or whatever. I just didn't care. I was here for Megan, but I do like that she bonds with Gemma and she remains on their side and becomes like a member of their family. And even Katie calls her out of like, hey, you tried to kill my aunt with a tablet pen, and Megan's basically just like, yeah, whoops, my bad. And like I said, she kind of reminds me of GLaDOS a little bit, with specifically some of her responses, especially towards the beginning. So that was fun. I do like, like sassy robot characters and stuff. I wish we had like a bit more of Katie. I feel like she wasn't really a character and kind of just more of a plot device. Like, she has some interesting conversations with Gemma and Megan and helps them with their character growth and stuff, but I feel like she's kind of just there, and it's a bit of a bummer because the first movie, it was kind of very focused around her and trying to bond with her aunt, and then here they're like fighting and stuff instead, and Gemma's off doing things with Megan. They don't really let Katie do anything, and I'd understand if it was sort of part of the movie's message of like the movie's about learning to let Katie do things by herself, but they like baby her so much in the beginning of like, but I mean, I get it, there's a part of it where she's like rescued for the second half of the movie and such, but I just needed more of like when she's on screen to be able to do more things. Like, she definitely does some stuff for sure. I don't know, I just needed more from this movie. I felt kind of disappointed and stuff, especially with the marketing of it and like the trailers and stuff, making it just look so fun. And it is fun, but if you're gonna commit to being that camp, I just need some more out of it. Yeah, okay, I guess that's pretty much it. I still liked it anyway. I'm still glad I finally got to see it. It came out in like June, and today is September 26th. It like literally just got added to Peacock, and I was like, yeah, I finally get to watch it. I was telling my mom about it, and then afterwards I was done, and she was like, you were so excited for your movie, we're all giddy, is the word she used, and she's like, how was it? And I'm like, I didn't like it that much. Or I felt, no, it was I was disappointed. But yeah, it's still a fun time. I just feel like you can, I know I'm partially saying this because it's a sequel. It's not really something like the first Megan movie can like stand on its own as like a horror movie and stuff. I feel like this one can't really stand on its own as an action movie. It's still like really fun and stuff. I could see myself watching it again, but like you definitely have to watch the first movie before this one, or it just kind of doesn't really hit the same and stuff. But yeah, that's Megan 2.0. I'd be down if we got more movies like this though, of whether they're horror or action and stuff, of being like this level of camp and having this sassy character and whatever. I don't think we need like a third one of these. I feel like the first movie overall was better. I don't know if I still would feel the same if they kept it to being about horror and stuff. I actually, maybe that would have been more fun if they like leaned into the camp, but they had Megan still going around like killing people. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, bye bye.